Welcome to Loaded Talk. I am your Congressman, Frank, and along with me is...
Charlie.
Charlie.
I'm so awkward. What's up, planet Earth?
Of course, I'm the third most popular candidate that has ever been. So this week's been a weird week when it comes to the news. Like, there's been, it feels like stuff's been going on, but it feels like the only thing that is really in the news is news people, you know?
Yep.
So, like, the biggest thing, of course, was Don Lemon getting fired from CNN. I guess we'll start with Don anyway. Don. Don Lemon, who has low ratings. He was in the evening news as like an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock type guy. And then he switched to being a morning show with a co-host because his new bosses, after, I guess, Discovery became ownership, was like, everybody hates us. We're going to fire Brian Stelter, and we'll move Don to the morning. But you can do a morning show. It'll be good. You'll have a co-host. It'll be good. It wasn't good. At some point he made that comment about women not being in their prime after like 24 or something like that. His co-hosts are like, are you talking about birthing prime? What prime are you talking about? And of course, Don being a man's man, I don't think he has lots of experience with the women folk and even knew what he had said. Or he's just a mean guy. But then he got into another back and forth with I can't remember how to pronounce his name. He's running for the Republican nominee for president right now. He's a businessman, like Rami or Ravi. I forget how to pronounce his name. Anyway, he's a smart guy. He's interesting. But he was talking about actually the racism behind most gun control laws. And so Don Lemon was basically like, you can't talk about being black without black skin and whatever ethnicity you are. And he's like, I'm Indian American. But, he's like, I just don't think you have to have black skin to, discuss these things. You can have a conversation. Anyway, so he got fired, and he kind of threw a little Twitter brat attack about it. I'm like, I just can't believe they didn't even tell me. And I've blamed management, basically. So now he says that he's going to be taking the summer off, I guess, to have a 12-year-old summer, he says, which is interesting. I guess he's going to probably go up to the Hamptons and probably harass some other bartender, because that was another thing that I don't remember if it was during Me Too or just later, but there's that guy that was like, because there's up in the Hamptons, there's just not that many bars, and all the famous people go there during the summers, and so you see famous people, and so there was some guy who was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And so at some point, I think Don Lemon stuck his hand into his own pants, and then like tried to reach for the guy's face with that hand or something. He was trying to. It was So.
Wow.
Yeah, he got sued for sexual harassment or something. And he's like, that never happened. That never happened. He's like, yeah, bar full of people. But obviously that's not the big thing that happened this week. No one cares about him or the NBC guy that got outed. There's the guy that's, I don't know, he was VP of some other for NBC News, some big shot. But of course, he was harassing some girl in the workforce, some woman in the workplace. I think maybe even an anchor or something like that. They kind of named her when they shouldn't have named her because like she's in the middle of a lawsuit. That's like a an harassment in the workplace lawsuit, and she wasn't really going on TV and putting the dude on blast. And they're like, oh, it's because he had an inappropriate relationship with her. No, their lawyer's like, guys, just. But nobody cares about that guy. Nobody cares about Lemon because Tucker Carlson, the ratings king of cable news, out at Fox. Everyone knows at this point, but I'll read this whole thing from Hollywood Reporter.
We
got cookie problems.
Cookie problems.
And I didn't even ask me about cookies. Let me see what I can do to refresh this. Maybe Hollywood Reporter's just super secretive. Well, I don't know, give it a shot. Got anything?
There we go.
Hey, okay. Tucker Carlson out at Fox News. The host's last show was Friday, so it was a week ago Friday. Brian Kilmeade anchored a Monday night show, the first of a rotating slate of guest hosts. So yeah, in a shock announcement on Monday, Fox News Media said it would be parting ways with Tucker Carlson, the host of its 8 p.m. program, Tucker Carlson Tonight. Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor, the company said. They're going to put some rotating things in there. Yeah, so it was a surprising one. Carlson, his most watched show on Fox News, and on some days, all of cable TV. Anyway, he also does a show for like their streaming service and all that. I mean, he's Tucker Carlson, and so his ratings, I don't really put it in here, I guess, but his ratings were always in like 3.5 million, something like that, give or take. So that was a big. What did you think when you heard the news of Tucker's outing?
Well, I almost was. I guess it's a little bit of a concern. I mean, usually when you're running a business, you don't get rid of your best product.
Right.
That's the only thing I could think of immediately.
And some people say, they go, oh, well, they don't tune in for Tucker. They tune in for Fox News. You can put anybody there. They're like, oh, it's Bill O'Reilly. And then everyone's like, who's going to, like, Bill O'Reilly, how do you replace that guy? And then Tucker Carlson came in. Like, oh, Bill who? But when Bill O'Reilly, like, cable TV, cable news in general, the ratings are going down. So Tucker is the king of ratings at 3.5 million. I think Bill O'Reilly was at like 8 million or something crazy like that, or I don't know what it was, but like numbers they don't see anymore on cable TV. And so like, yeah, I guess you can put the different pieces in place, but it looks like you're slowly, I don't know, eating your own industry,
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, it was surprising. And on that Friday program, he was like, "All right, see you Monday." And then he gave some speech at I forget, some like a conservative think tank place.
Oh, okay.
On over the weekend, didn't say anything about it. He just kind of did his little speech, and he said something about being good and praying, and and he's like, "I'm not a super Christian." He's like, "I'm Episcopal. We're like the worst." Which I didn't know, but he was just like, I'm just saying, like, I forget. Anyway, it was a decent speech, but it was, then he was just gone, and everyone's like, what happened? What happened? Is there a scandal? I'm like, well, there's like a producer who's suing him for an unhappy work environment or whatever. Of course, it came out this week that she hasn't even met Tucker Carlson, so it's like, okay, for the show was not a good place to work, okay, and so it's like, well, that's not it. I mean, and then like, well, Dominion, they just paid out like almost $800 million from Dominion. It's like, well, that could be like, and Tucker, he does the most disinformation. And you go, yeah, but for the Dominion stuff, he was like, okay, come back when you have evidence. And he'd say things like, okay, so just to be clear, they're bringing no evidence about this. I haven't seen any evidence. They're not pretending to, they haven't presented it in court. They haven't brought it here. So they're alleging all this stuff, but so far they haven't had any evidence. And it's like, well, that's a very fair take, So it's like, yeah, it's probably not that. And then people said, it's like, well, during the discovery phase, when all these text messages were coming out, apparently Tucker was pretty critical of management, and he was just, I don't know, he was critical of management. He was critical of the coverage of the Stop the Steal stuff, and definitely he called Giuliani and oh shoot, what was the lawyer, Trump's main lawyer during all the Stop the Steal stuff, the female? Powell, Sidney Powell, and but he was like, basically these guys are loony nutters, and so he's just like, these people are crazy, like this is stupid, and our management sucks, and so when they settled, one of the big things was they were trying to keep their host from going up on the witness stand and having to testify because that would just be everywhere. But apparently Tucker Carlson was like, I got no problem with that. I got no problem anything I've said. So then it's like, okay, well maybe it's because he talked a bunch of crap. And then lastly, I know there was a theory, I guess Rupert Murdoch really dislikes it when you talk about God. He just, for all hosts, like he does not like it. He'll tell them to stop, like don't talk, like we're going to lose viewers, don't do it, right? And so I guess there was a dinner recently with Rupert Murdoch his fiance and Tucker Carlson, maybe, where like for the first time, like fiance would talk, all Christian like for the first time that he had noticed. I'm sure she's much younger. But it's like, oh, God bless you. Oh, Bible says blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, what the hell? And so I guess, it was with Tucker. I guess she was talking to Tucker and it was all a little Bible related or God related or what have you. Anyway, that fiance is gone too, by the way.
All right.
I think so. I think the fiance is gone. But yeah, so that was a rumor. People were like, maybe it's because of that. Maybe it's because he's been saying God stuff more. And Rupert Murdoch hates that. It's like, pfft. But either way, they've made the switch. And now Fox News takes ratings hit.
Frozen
okay,
again.
let me refresh it.
We're also getting some flickering on your camera.
Flickering?
Yeah, every now and then it like flickers. I don't know what. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, okay. Of course, there's always something. These damn cameras.
It's just not going to happen when I say it.
Of course, that's okay. Never happen again. Oh, you know what? It's because I didn't kill the overhead light. I wonder if that's adding the flicker. That could be it. All right, let's try it. I think I refreshed it.
There we go.
Fox News takes rating hit after Tucker Carlson's exit. Though still handily led the 8 p.m. hour, the cable outlet's viewers fell off by a sizable amount. Let's see what we got.
Of course, I do not have you PIP'd.
Oh.
How we lost that?
Oh. Losing everything. Can we jump back to cameras normal? Okay.
Oh, now it's frozen again. Okay.
Is it? Okay, whatever, man.
Things are weird.
Things are weird. We've been getting ghosts in the machine lately.
Yeah, it will not let me go back to your article.
Okay, whatever. That's not exciting. Hollywood Reporter. Basically, the first show pulled in just under 2.6 million viewers compared to 3.3, which is 21% below the average. Fox News Tonight also took a hit with the key demographic, 25 to 54. Yeah, Fox News, I think their demographic is above 54. I don't think they hit the key demo. But its 0.24 rating was 37% lower than the 0.38 Carlson averaged. And then they had, let's see, yeah, they still beat Joe Scarborough, Anderson Cooper, because no one watches MSNBC or CNN. Anderson Cooper, 360, 728,000 people. Like less than, and that's not unusual. Those are just the numbers. Like Joe Scarborough somehow got 1.5 million on MSNBC, but like, yeah, 728,000. Those are the numbers they're doing. That's why Discovery, when they got CNN, they're just like, we can't just hate Donald Trump and show our news to like less than 1 million people across the whole country.
Yeah, there's 340 million people.
Yeah, and like, and to do that like all the time, like that's just your peak. But then some of it was Newsmax. I guess their shows got a little bump. That's see, Eric Bowling, who has an 8 o'clock show, and Greg Kelly, who have a 9 o'clock show. Both had triple their average audience from the first quarter, so they both hit around 500,000. But normally they're at like 140,000 people, which is Newsmax. No one's got that. But apparently it's because in the 9 o'clock hour, Kelly did interview Trump, so it's hard to say if it was a Tucker exit or if it was a Trump effect, on the media. Either way, we were kind of talking about it before we started. It's like, I wonder what will happen to Fox. It'll be interesting because like when they got rid of O'Reilly, there was this kind of cloud of lawsuits that ended up going away and all that. And I was like, okay, we'll see. And then Tucker Carlson had a surprising impact. Like I was surprised how popular he was so quickly. So there might be something to that where people are just turn on Fox News. That's what they do. They're elderly. They go home. They turn on Fox News, and that might just stay because old people don't like to change. But if they keep shedding numbers generally, it's like why? How much money could Fox News possibly make if their viewership starts getting to that like 1 million level? Is that enough to be on all the? I guess. I mean, it's really the money's made in the deals with the cable companies,
Right.
So I guess they'll still get that money, but I think those deals will get smaller. I'd imagine. I mean, do you have cable?
No.
Yeah, I haven't had cable in I don't know how long, years.
Well, yeah, and I wonder if is that is that the reason why the numbers? I mean, obviously the internet has changed TV viewership in general.
Sure.
But I wonder if that, even if you have the best anchor that could possibly exist, are your numbers ever going to be higher than, well, Bill O'Reilly's, I guess.
And I think the answer to that's no. You know, well, I mean, if Joe Rogan, his viewership per episode. Now, granted, it's not at an 8 o'clock time slot where you have to tune in, but he's 100 million views per video. And and some spike up higher, obviously some are lower, but he just goes in there, talks, and he stomps CNN's numbers. It's 100 million, right? Did I just exaggerate? I'm gonna look this up right now. But even if it's not, he's not on YouTube anymore, so I can't check the numbers. But I think that's what he was hitting on YouTube around the time he did the Spotify deal. And there's other podcasters, that are doing big numbers. There's a lot of people that are in line already with CNN and MSNBC. Maybe not Fox and maybe not Rachel Maddow, but they don't have the same bill. Fox News has, in order to be to ask questions to the idiot press secretaries, you have to have a DC bureau for your news. You have to have, I think, a New York and DC and maybe another, but you definitely need a DC bureau. And so Fox has a DC bureau. Fox has an headquarters in Manhattan. I'm sure they've got an LA, it's Fox News. I'm sure they got lots of different locations. And, people are watching more stuff with people that don't even have a headquarters. They don't have an extra bill. And some of these independent guys Matt Taibbi and some of these dudes that have gone to Substack, they're doing actual investigative reporting. It's not just, commentating. It's investigative reporting, and it's good. So I don't know. I think this whole cable news thing does start to dwindle. I think Fox will probably exist, and CNN will exist, but I wonder if it'll become a little bit more milk toast, and just they're either going to go crazier. There's 2 ways to go. One is you just keep doubling down on crazy. It's just you know what we need? More pro wrestling stuff. At 8 o'clock, our host, body slams the president's lookalike. Okay. So it's either going to go idiocracy, crazy, or they're going to have to go back to being we are just balanced news all day. And maybe not even run all day. Maybe repeat shows like Headline News used to do. They do an hour. They play that hour a couple times. I mean, hell, ESPN used to do that with SportsCenter, but maybe they still do. And you knew it was coming on right after it ended. So if you missed the first 10 minutes, I'll just watch the first 10 minutes when it comes back on. But finally, Tucker said something because he's been at his home in Florida. He's got a place not too far from here, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's less than 2 hours south of here. And it's and so he's just been chilling with his wife, and the paparazzi's getting pictures of basically him driving around in a golf. I think it's one of those communities where you got to be in a golf cart. And so he's just driving around with his wife, laughing, having a good old time. They're chilling at the beach, walking dogs. And so it's well, he doesn't seem like he's hurting. But here's his video he put out. Let me make sure I'll go up mine.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also.
Like me.
It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them.
That's right.
Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues?
Long time.
It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state.
Yeah.
That's a depressing realization,
Duopoly.
but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them.
Preach.
This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful.
Yeah.
At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's
Loaded
enough.
talk, that's why.
As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
All right. So, that was awesome.
Great.
Yeah, no, like, he puts out the first thing, and it's just like, damn. Like, even the people on the left are just like, I don't disagree with anything that was in that video. I think it was the guy that plays Dwight. He was just like, I never thought I'd say this, but I agree with everything Tucker Carlson said in that video.
I think Tucker should. I think the rest of his career before retirement should just be going around to colleges and speaking. Honestly,
I think he's going to put up. I think TuckerCarlson.com is going to be quite the media hub, and I think he's going to figure out a way to. I don't know. It's hard to get on a television, but who cares? It's getting a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you can build an app for Samsung, Apple, Roku, you can get on TVs.
Yeah, he should keep speaking.
Yeah, yeah. So So we talked about, in a night, 3.5 million or something is what he did. How many people do you think seen that video on Twitter? Just on Twitter.
No idea.
Just guess a number. Come on, Charlie.
10 million.
God, you're so stupid. It's 78.5 million. So
Not bad.
people. So when it's like, oh, I wonder how many people are going to watch this show. It's like, probably not 78.5 million, but I think he'll be fine. He's got 6.8 million followers on Twitter. I think I ended up. Did I? I don't know. I may have ended up following him. I bet you he got some new followers off of this.
I need to add him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I was slow to get aboard the Tucker train, and I don't even know if I'm on the Tucker train at this point. But over the last year or so, the way he's gone after the Ukraine war, the way he's talked about corruption within the government, and I don't know. He seems to attack evil establishment stuff more than anybody else on the news, which is awesome. I think he was talking about emerging technologies and the shifting demographic. One place where I disagree a lot with him is he did an interview on Ben Shapiro had a Sunday special thing where you just do an interview with the guy. And so Tucker Carlson was talking about automation and how he's concerned about losing jobs and stuff like that. So the trucking industry he thought was a big one because they're working on automated trucking. And so he thinks that there should be a bill that basically outlaws automated trucking. Because he's worried about the number of people's jobs that'll be displaced and what will happen to those people, like the truckers and everything. And basically we're going to end up automating away all these jobs and people won't have any jobs. Of course, that's kind of like fighting for the horse and buggy industry. It's just well, we don't want to do cars because what about all the people that make buggy wheels? It's there'll be jobs. It's not a learn to code thing. It's the economy will evolve and it'll suck. Truckers, and it's not going to happen all in one day. That's
Nope.
the other thing. Like, truckers can kind of see the writing on the wall now. I mean, like, these you know, it used to be Smokey and the Bandit. Was he in a big old truck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you used to just see them always shifting, just now they're automatics, and so it's like, okay, well, that made it easier. Now all these giant semis are just automatic transmission, so that made it so like mini Joe Schmoes could get in there, and unfortunately some of them are horrible at driving, but that's watered down the pool of drivers, you know, so you get paid less. But then there's been other technological things like the brokerage sites for like less than a truckload LTL shipments. So even Uber has Uber Freight, and so like the younger guys, these truckers were telling me one time that they're all hanging out waiting to get an alert of a load ready, you know, to a cafe or something. And so finally someone figured out that like one of the younger guys brought in a laptop and he's like, bloop. He's like, oh, gotta go. And they're like, what'd you just do? And he showed them, you know, these freight sites. So these old salts that weren't looking to figure it out, they would just hang out with the kid. And so he'd take the first one and be like, all right, what do you want? You know? But you know, that industry was changing that way. But they already have the ability right now to kind of do a train
Yep.
of trucks. You know,
Yep.
there's a driver in the first one, but not in the second one,
Right.
or the third one, or I don't know how many they do. And so, like, that's already there. I mean, if you're getting into trucking right now, you have to have your eyes open that might not be your job in 20 years, you know? So, anyway, it'll change, but something will pop up in the economy, you know, some new gig.
I mean, if I was a trucker right now and knowing that things are going to change, I honestly would get a security license because an unmanned truck is a nice target to boost.
That's a great point.
You know?
Yeah, and that might become a new gig where it's just like it's even easier. Like you're not driving.
You're just in it.
You're
Yeah.
the human attendant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what are they going to do? Mount cameras and guns inside of it?
That's going to be an awesome truck.
They go to unload their load of salsa in Tulsa, and they open the door and also just kills everybody. It's like, damn it, Bobby, you didn't disable the arm system. You forgot to hit the button again. We lose too many good people that way. But that's a perfect example. Like, you know, it's like, oh, the drivers are gone. It's like, yeah, but, you know, there'll be a new need that once you have all these robot trucks, you know. And it might be something, too, where it's like, okay, well, now everything's flowing, like, more effectively constantly because robots don't sleep. And they probably don't have to keep logs and take crystal meth to keep going.
I was just going to say, meth.
It's a cornerstone of the trucking industry. Remember they'd sell like pseudoephedrine, like the mini thins and stuff at gas stations. Those things are wild. And the truckers are just like, boop. But yeah, so there'll be things that pop up like that. And there might be something because of how effective it is. Maybe there's a bigger need for people running fork trucks and stuff like that to unload.
Yep.
And so it's like, hey, you don't have to travel. Instead of a big truck, you got a fork truck. You know, there'll be jobs. At least there always has been.
I wonder, I mean, just thinking about trucking even further, to keep the trucks from stopping, if you would have automated fueling on the road or a truck driver driving a fuel truck to fuel the automated delivery truck.
With the thingy like the airplanes
Yeah.
have. Yes, no, I'm all about that. And then those would have to be automated too. So they just kind of cut. Or they'll fix the batteries. Because there's that one, I think it's University of Boston or whatever, but they found that tweak with battery technology. If they replace something, it wasn't lithium, but it might have been cobalt. But if you replace something with just sodium.
Yeah, salt batteries are like the big next.
Well, that was the thing. It was just, I guess it could be the same thing. I don't know. But it's just like the normal battery mix of chemicals, right? And there's one that's very rare, and they just tried putting sodium in its place. And they tested it. And they said, you know, like the way the batteries work is every time you charge it and use it and all that, like it has fewer charges left, you know, and it just degrades. It's just how batteries work. This one, they ran it like something insane, like they ran like 5,000 cycles on it and couldn't get it to degrade at all.
Wow.
And like the distance for one battery, or the length that the battery lasted, was something like incredible, like 3 times or 5 times that of like a current battery that you'd find in a Tesla. And so it's like, all right, well, if you got a battery that's like 5 times as powerful and lasts forever, like, yeah, I think I can start getting on some battery technology.
Yeah, yeah, especially if it doesn't use lithium.
Or cobalt.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can, but it's did I tell you about the kaolin mines? And so this is kind of a nerdy thing, but in porcelain, like porcelain clays, there's this dry material called kaolin. And that's what makes porcelain so white. So nice, pure, good kaolin will get you a nice white, translucent porcelain. And so in France and England and over there, there's a bunch of kaolin mines. And so for the clay company over in Kansas City there, we sell it, and then we also use it to make, it's called slip, like liquid clay. So if you want to like pour molds and stuff like that. And so we use it to make, our super white porcelain slip. Anyway, suddenly the company that sell it, and the kaolin they call super white, I think. Yeah. And so, but the company that always sold it was just like, we're not selling it anymore. And the problem is, like, there's other kaolins, but if they're not as pure, the porcelain's not as white, not as translucent, And so this was like the best that was out there, really. And they just stopped. I'm like, that's weird. So I started doing some digging, and I found this announcement by the company that underneath a kaolin mine, they found just a butt ton of lithium. And it's like, I forget, it was like $800 billion or $80 billion worth of lithium. It's just like, they're like, what, screw porcelain.
Yep.
And it's, I can't blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, they struck gold, essentially. So use that while we're still using it. But it's wild to me because it's gone. This product's just gone forever, I think. Because there's just a lot more valuable stuff.
Huh.
Yeah. It was kind of apropos of nothing, I guess, but I forget what made me think of it. Oh, the lithium.
Yeah.
I started thinking, I like to give people grief sometime if they're snotty about their electric cars. Like if you get a Tesla because it's like awesome, or like even, I don't know, get the electric F-150 or one of those trucks, and you're just like, I don't know, I want an electric vehicle. And okay. But they're all subsidized. Like, that's why he couldn't sell any Teslas in Australia, I think, because they refused to give him a subsidy. And so the Tesla cost something like $800,000 or something, $250,000, something like that. And people were like, I don't want to buy a Tesla for $250,000. And so, here there's all these subsidies, so they got them, priced affordably, But I always like to call them welfare mobiles, because when people are real smug about it, especially if they're smug about their Tesla that they spent, 6 figures on. I just saw that flicker. That's not the light above me. Ghost. Anyway, so I don't feel like getting on welfare to buy a car, just to kind of take their steam out. But now I'm going to start calling them or call them coal-powered vehicles, I think I do that. But now I'm going to call them slave-powered. That's how that cobalt gets in there. Slaves, child slaves. Well, I think they're adults anyway. Are you about to hop?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that, when you really look at the process of making an electric vehicle happen, it is so much dirtier than an ICE engine, but...
And like the disposal afterwards, and the batteries and everything. I don't know. Everyone's short term, and they're thinking it's just like nothing comes out, therefore it's good. It's like, yeah, okay. Good, sure, but like
it's the same thing with solar panels. Like, they're just terrible at disposing of.
Oh god, and solar panels like start degrading so quickly, and so it's like. And if you don't do regular maintenance and keep those things clean,
they're inefficient.
Yeah, super, like almost immediately. And then they say, oh, well, you can get this rebate for the next, 10 years. And they show you the graphs, like, look how much you can save. You'll save this much, plus you get this much of a rebate, and boom. It's like, yeah, but in like 5 years, I'm going to be getting, a percentage of that power generation. And so now it's just like, oh, it never pays off.
Right.
And now you've put holes in my roof.
And now I can't redo my roof without ripping all this off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so now I have to like get someone to demo it. Once they take it off, it can't go back up. You're like, yeah, yeah. I am not there on solar panels yet, other than in a mobile sort of charging kind of way. They can be good, but they're not the answer. Hydrogen might be. Mm-hmm. I'm really high on hydrogen. Did I ever tell you about Plug Power? Mm-mm. I've been following them forever.
Oh, the company?
Yeah.
I followed them for a little bit.
Did you? Yeah. So, like, I remember getting some of their stock from Robinhood at like $2,
Smart.
They went up to like something crazy, and then they're back kind of down at like $10 or something. Probably should have sold, but because I think they got up to like $70, and so I felt really smart until it crashed.
Are they the ones that did a solar-powered school bus?
No, they're hydrogen.
Oh, hydrogen. Okay. I can't remember.
Yeah, no. So they, for the longest time, they mainly did power generators, but it'd be for like a subdivision. So it was a hydrogen-powered generator, and so that was kind of the big thing, industrial and big areas. But recently, they signed a deal with this French automaker whose name is escaping me. I think it starts with a C, but it's like the big French car brand. Or not C, maybe it's Renault. R, yeah, Renault. I think that's it. But I guess Renault also makes tractor trailers, and so they signed a deal to make hydrogen-powered tractor trailers. And I think that'll be the first spot. They even put Plug Power on one of their like F1 cars, which is pretty cool. But then like they're developing this idea of, because the big challenge now is making enough liquid hydrogen to have it affordable, And so one thing that they thought about doing is within a hydroelectric dam, using energy from the hydroelectric dam to generate hydrogen. And so suddenly you have like, it's made with water power. It's essentially water vapor is the output.
Huh.
And so it's just like, how do you get much cleaner than that? It's a combustion engine, but like you're, water vapor out. So it's like, man, if you can pull that off, that could be crazy. And the government's totally ignoring them. I think they,
Of course.
I think they keep Schumer greased. I think they're friends with Schumer, because they're a New York company. And yet, like, I don't know, all the subsidies are all about electric, electric and solar and all this kind of crap. But I kind of like it because that means, if they really can do something big, then they won't have the government monkey on their back,
Not tainted at all.
Yeah, and they'll be free to like suddenly just boom, no one will be trying to regulate the hell out of them before they even exist, and so they could just kind of have a nice explosion of growth. Is a thought. So everybody buy Plug Power just so my stock goes up in value. That's not financial advice. That's just me being selfish. Little pump and dump. All right. So, in other news, things that actually aren't related to anybody that talks about the news, the Republicans have offered a plan on the debt ceiling, because of course we're at the debt ceiling again. We're always at the debt ceiling, and it's going to be the end of the world if we don't raise it, because obviously going trillions of dollars in debt more is better than just not operating like 40% of our government for a while, which I think, every time there's government shutdowns, like, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
And then run the numbers after.
Yeah.
Just let's look at the savings of you being shut down.
Yeah, and it's like, because like 60% still runs all like the essential stuff. They always make a show of it, like Obama that year, like shut down monuments and stuff, where it was like, it's one thing to not staff it, but they're like, we're gonna put, they put fencing around like the World War II, or the little thing where it's got all like the names of people that have died and all that kind of stuff. And so this veterans group had scheduled a trip to go up and check out the names of people they know and that kind of thing. Might have been Vietnam. I forget which memorial this is, but they couldn't, because instead of just it was just outdoors. It's just stones sticking out of the ground, essentially. And so, but they fenced the whole thing off. Like, instead of just like saying, "Oh, we don't staff it," they're like, "Oh, let's spend extra money to close it off," just to be like, "Sorry, this is what happens with the debt ceiling. You don't raise it." And we gotta like just close all these parks. Just like we gotta build walls around our parks and monuments. And so, so there's always theatrics, you know. But really, like, they always talk about, soldiers aren't going to get paid. These people don't get paid. Social Security, it's like, no, Social Security still goes. The soldier thing, they do need to figure out. I know they always get their back pay, but I mean, that's silly that you cut off payroll,
Right.
you know, because it's one thing to cut off payroll people who aren't showing, but it's not like the military gets leave at that time, you know, because they don't give. It's like they gotta stay, they gotta keep working. So I mean, but I feel like that's on purpose too. Like it's it gives you a nice victim. It's like, well, you hate the soldiers,
Right?
You hate America. It's like, yeah, be a patriot. Let us spend ourselves to death. So this time they've got a plan that they say, well, cut spending here. We'll cut over. Bloop. All right. This is Reuters. Republican McCarthy unveils plan to lift U.S. debt ceiling, cut spending. U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday unveiled a plan to raise the nation's debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion and cut federal spending by 3 times that amount, laying out an opening position in what is likely to be a tense partisan debate over government borrowing. That sounds pretty good. You go, cut 3 times or cut $4.5 trillion? That sounds good, but McCarthy's proposal, which he unveiled on the floor of the House of Representatives, would cut the total amount of domestic and military spending to 2022 levels. Man. And would cap growth at 1% annually in years to come. I mean, it would not touch retirement and health programs that are projected to expand dramatically. That's expected to expand dramatically as the population ages. God, that's so depressing. Yeah, so that would raise the government's $31.4 trillion debt limit, because that's not enough. McCarthy's plan will also repeal green energy incentives signed into law by Biden last year and the Inflation Reduction Act, which was just green policy, boost domestic oil and gas production, and scrap his $400 billion student loan forgiveness effort. I mean, scrap that all you want. A lot of that money has already been taken out. What they can do, put it back in.
Right.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong, he didn't have the authority to do it, but, like, a lot of it's been done. Like, I don't know. I mean, you do tack principal and interest back on there? Like, I don't, you know. It would claw back unspent COVID-19 relief money. That's a good idea. Cancel a recent budget increase for the IRS. Yeah.
Yes.
And impose stiffer work requirements for some benefit programs. Congress would gain greater power to block the admin's regulation. Who cares? So anyway, so it barely passed. Only Republicans voted for it. 4 Republicans didn't. Some of them, one of them, I don't know if it was Gates or one of the other guys, it just said, like, I've never voted to increase the debt ceiling, and I never will, no matter whose plan it is. Yeah, all right, sounds good. I think someone else had something similar like that. Yeah, I get that. Just no, shut it down. But so obviously 2022, a long time ago. Do you remember where you were in 2022? I think I was graduating high school. It was long summers, wonderful days.
They went a whole year back. Wow.
Well, it's only April.
Never mind. They didn't even go a whole year.
And you know the funny thing about 2022? Do you remember everybody complaining about how much money we spent in 2022? Here, I pulled up a graph. Hold on, let me find it. Okay. This is right on the Wikipedia's. Look at this. We spent... Oh, get out of here. I don't want these details. There we go. We spent $6.3 trillion. We brought in about 4.9. That's a $1.4 trillion deficit. Yeah, let's see. Income taxes, payroll taxes, debt. Look at that. The pie, the red thing, deficit. That's a substantial piece of pie. That's a piece of pie you get in trouble for taking.
What is other? What are we labeling other?
Oh, CIA. It's just stuff. It's just $193 billion. Who cares? Nothing. Chump change. Tariffs, $100 trillion or $100 billion. Excise taxes, estate tax, $88 billion in estate taxes. Just taking your money when you're dead and you can't stop them. It's so messed up. It's like, hey, like, didn't these people pay income taxes to get that money? It's like, sure did. It's like, well, some of them invested. It's like, yeah. Didn't they pay capital gains taxes? They sure did. It's like, didn't they pay property taxes on their property? Yeah, they did that too. It's like, okay, and now what? It's like, well, they died. We get a third. Why? Stop us, you know? So, all that to say that the Republican plan barely cuts spending, and they cut spending down to an unsustainably high level. Like, granted, it's better than being higher, but it's just not an accomplishment.
Yeah, don't act like a hero.
Well, and even weirder than that is the Democrats acting like just clutching their pearls, like all of society's going to break down with these radical cuts.
The audacity.
The audacity. You're just going to return to 2020. We can't afford 2022 prices. It's a 2023 now. So they're just acting. Here, I got a little thing here. Old Representative Clyburn. Oh, it worked. Sweet. He calls McCarthy debt limit legislation dead on arrival in the Senate. He says, so he's the assistant House Democrat leader, said, the thing that is dead on arrival. Clyburn said Saturday in an interview on MSNBC that he does not believe the Lift, Save, Grow Act, which the House narrowly passed in a 217-215 vote on Wednesday, itself will bring President Biden to negotiate on raising the debt ceiling. But negotiations can start after the House bill is dead. In fact, it may die somewhere around Statutory Hall before it even gets on the Senate, Clyburn said. So it'll be dead on arrival, and then that's when the negotiations start. The sensible people in the Senate will be sitting down with the White House. They'll hammer out something. And so come up with a proposal that makes sense for the American people and the White House. He added McCarthy knows the House bill that passed is a joke that merely pushed through just to get out of the body. So yeah, people that voted against it, Republicans Ken Buck, Matt Gaetz, Andy Biggs, and Tim Burchett. Yeah, okay. So, what did Chuck Schumer say? Called the bill an extremist right-wing agenda. Chuck Schumer, extremist right-wing, only spending $6.4 trillion of money that we don't have, and even we're not going to. Do you know how much we've spent this year so far? That maybe this is why they're freaking out.
I don't want to know.
We're up at like I think $3.1 trillion, and that's not like through today. That's through probably March or something. Like we could spend like $12 trillion this year. Like it's so much money. It's so much money.
That didn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah, we don't have it. It doesn't exist. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I get that. I get the people that are just like, let's burn it to the ground and just run this thing. You know, like we don't really like capitalism. We don't really like, people. The peons. Like, if we can just tell them how to live their life, we'll structure it. Let's centralize this whole damn thing. We can still have elections, but like we're already to that point where, I think senators. I don't think an incumbent senator has lost a race like in the last, I forget, like decades and decades and decades. And so it's one of those things people complain like, I hate these guys. These guys suck. And it's like, well, you remember my name? Yeah, I remember your name. I'll vote for you. And that's it. Like, and that's the incumbency advantage. Like, oh yeah, you've been the representative. I guess you can be the representative again. And that's all it boils down to. And within the party, like, because incumbency is so strong, if you have a sitting Republican or Democrat and you want to primary that person, you will not have the support of the party and all of that cash. So it's very, very difficult because it's like, all right, you can challenge that person, say goodbye to your political aspirations, So, and all these people that want to be professional politicians, that is not worth it to them, And so you just get these same idiots constantly. And this is where we get. But yeah, so I understand people that are just making a move to centralize authority. I guess I understand that some of these people are just stupid, and it's a lot easier it's a lot easier to spend money than to think about money. You know, like when you're
That's a
doing
good point.
well, think about like if you got your credit card, and it's just it doesn't matter. You just buy things. Like you see someone, I'll just buy that. Oh, that sounds nice. I'll buy that. Like everything's great. You know, you get the bill, and that's not as great. Imagine if you just said, "Peck it. I'm not gonna pay that bill.
Right.
I'm not gonna pay that bill." It's like I'll be dead by the time we pay that bill. It's like I got another credit card. Phew. Let's do it. Like I mean, that's easy. That's easy. It's fun. Like nothing challenging about it. It's like you want a new road? Here, have a new road. You want the? There we go. Everybody gets presents.
You get a road.
You get a road. You get a road. Couldn't build it without the government, after all. But let's see.
Maybe Oprah should run for president.
Oh God. I mean,
You get a road.
I'll take the free iPads. But speaking of all the money we don't have, here's a little thing that was over at Zero Hedge. Now, do I need to try to?
Yep.
Let's see what you can get out of here. Your pop-ups with your things. So one thing that's been happening for a while. Let's see. All right. Argentina abandons U.S. dollar in China trade as local Bitcoin reaches record high. So over the last few weeks, it seemed you can't turn a page, blink at a pixel, or hear a news report without some form of de-dollarization headline shrieking at you, which is true. From Brazil to Saudi Arabia and from India to Argentina, an increasing number of nations are reportedly shifting away from the dollar hegemon. Hegemon? Catch 'em all. Today it escalated further as Reuters reported that Argentina will start buying the bulk of its Chinese imports in yuan instead of dollars, as it seeks to preserve its shrinking supply of U.S. dollars. In April, it aims to pay around $1 billion of Chinese imports in yuan instead of dollars, and thereafter around $790 million in monthly imports. So they got to keep their foreign reserves robust. So it used to be that like all the BRICS countries, like India and all those, like they've been getting together and talking like, maybe the U.S. dollar is not a good idea to keep. Like maybe the Chinese dollar, the yuan, is the stronger currency. And the thing about that is, when the demand for our dollar around the globe goes down, especially when you're talking about, $1 billion here, $790 million there, like, $790 million per month that just goes away as a demand. Well, our dollar gets worth less, So we've printed all these dollars that makes them worth less, and then we've weakened ourselves so bad economically with these horrible policies that other countries are just like, do we really want to stock you? Because like think about how many U.S. dollars you want to sit on, like having money in savings as opposed to having it like invested in something or in gold or in just something, Like why? Like sitting on U.S. dollars right now, this seems like a bad idea for people in America. And so if you're a country that's just like, why? Why do we pay for everything in U.S. dollars? And now we can't buy as much with U.S. dollars. And like, granted, China manipulates their dollar, so it's gonna be a bait and switch, Like get on that China dollar, and then at some point they'll just manipulate it however they want. No, they will always end up being the winner. But either way, and like the Saudis have toyed with getting off the U.S. dollar as the petrodollar, and they go, we'll just accept multiple things. But if we're not the petrodollar, our value's going to really plummet. What are you about to?
So the only thing that I recently read about as far as China and all of that, I believe they just signed the similar trade deal. China just signed a similar trade deal with all of Latin America.
I know it's the
And
BRICS.
the BRICS or what? Yeah,
Brazil
yeah.
and yeah.
And that's just a little concerning to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. It is. Like China, China, just like America, wants dominance to be, they want to be the superpower. All these countries do. I guess not all the countries, but at least, America, Russia, China, we all have aspirations on being the power. And part of that power is influence around the globe, It's like, hey, if there's tension between us and this thing, you got our back, right? Right. It's like tension between us and China. It's like, well, China, we're kind of tied to them, so we don't have your back. And then it's like, China wants them to say, we have China's back. And so that's going to be that kind of pull. Obviously, U.S. has never been shy about invading the country in order to preserve whatever the hell we feel like preserving that day, or just for fun. But I mean, we can't just go around threatening to. I mean, we can, we probably will. But it's like, hey, get off this dollar, and you're gonna get a missile up your butt. Because at some point, it's very clear that you're the bad guy if you go around like bullying people, do this or else die. And that will not turn out well.
Probably be extortion through weapons. I would guess.
Probably, yeah. If you want our anti-air missiles or whatever. I mean, there'll be people like Israel that'll, Israel and England probably will be with us. All the Five Eyes intelligence people will probably stay with us, but I don't know. We're just making mistake after mistake, especially when it comes to our dollar. I mean, printing them, just borrowing, not even borrowing. We just spend more and then we make more dollars up, and it's gonna hit. I think. Did we talk last week about Amex and the $1 billion?
I don't think so. Did we?
I don't know. They put $1 billion aside to cover their anticipated losses. So
I think we did talk about big banks being smart.
Did we?
I don't
know.
During the whole bank crisis.
Well, this was like this past week or something. Amex announced that they put aside $1 billion cash to cover their anticipated losses of just defaults, people not paying their bills. So Amex right now is saying, they're not doing that to sit on it forever. So they're talking about in the short term, they're expecting defaults of $100 billion or something like that, or $1 billion. What did I just say? But that's a substantial $1 billion is a lot, and that's just Amex. That's not mortgages and stuff. But I think we're starting to see the very beginning, because if that is true, if Amex gets hit with $1 billion in defaults, I'm sure MasterCard and Visa will have something similar. Discover, and there's banks closing down. That one in California, FDIC just said, all right, we're going to cover everything. We got your backs, because of course it's a bank for rich people. And so of course we're printing dollars to cover these losses for this bank. But I think these things are going to continue. And I just saw our property appraiser give this speech the other day. I was looking at his graph of real estate value, and it actually in Pinellas bottomed out in 2012. So 2008 was the thing, but it took till 2012 till things bottomed out. So it could be wild in 5 years. It could be because if it starts with Amex today and some banks failing today like they are already, it could really be hitting by the end of the year.
Like a ripple effect.
Yeah, well, because there'll be runs on other banks who are similarly put. Because that's the thing about raising these interest rates is, these banks had these bond purchases and whatnot planning for lower rates. And so now if too many people want their money back, they have to cash out these things early, hit a penalty, and so they lose money. They just lose money. And if enough people do, it's like, oh, we don't have money. We don't have that, So it could be the beginning of a pretty nasty fall. And I think, I don't know. Like we have to stop, because it's just suicidal what we're doing. Real quick to end it here. RFK Jr. has jumped in to challenge Biden on the Democrat side. Speaking of challenging incumbents, and not only that headline's not really what I care about. New poll. While Robert F. Kennedy Jr. polls almost 1 in 5, so Kennedy is polling at almost 20% of Democrats right now, and he's not the sitting president, and he's not even like great of a candidate.
Right.
He's got I think it's a vaccine injury on his throat, and so he kind of talks. It's real labored for him to talk, he's kind of got a funny voice, basically. Not as funny as his dad and his uncle, the Kennedy thing, but the fact that he's jumped in, and one of his big things is he's very anti lots of vaccines, but COVID one in particular. But he wrote a book about Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci, where he just destroys Fauci for what he did during the AIDS crisis. Because anybody that defends Fauci needs to look up. I mean, they were testing drugs on foster kids and shit like that.
Jesus.
Like, I mean, Fauci's a monster. And like, in the way, I mean, anybody that was alive during the AIDS, explosion, that was not handled well. And they tried, because they wanted to sound sensitive and not say like, well, if you use needles or if you're, dudes having gay sex, like that's where the risk is at, and of course, if you sleep with someone who sleeps with someone type thing, then whatever. But, risky behavior and then gay sex, which they also referred to as risky behavior back in that day. But you're like, remember people being like afraid? Like I remember people being like weirded out about gay people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And just thinking like if they touched a gay person, they get AIDS.
Yep.
And like, at 6 or whatever, you're seeing all that kind of stuff. Magic Johnson got AIDS. People like, oh God, and like he wasn't allowed to play basketball anymore because or he had HIV. I'm sorry, but people were really worried about like blood but sweat. And they're like, well, we don't think you can catch it through sweat. Like, shh. But like that, it was bungled so bad. Like people treated gay people like they were a virus,
Right.
And it's like that was Fauci. I mean, it wasn't all Fauci, but he was in charge of the health policy back then. But yeah, so Kennedy's an interesting guy because, he's Bobby Kennedy's son. He's Jack Kennedy's nephew. So like, he's got name recognition, but like he is less crazy. Like he's a Democrat, and there's lots of things I don't agree with him on. The vaccine stuff, like he's very like informed consent. We should not be forcing vaccines on people. 100%, I got you. I'm all about that. He even came out and he said that he didn't think it was fair to have trans athletes competing with girls, which I did see a funny thing about a marathon runner who finished middle of the pack, but beat 450 girls in this marathon. And so she says something like, got basically a qualifying type medal. Like you finished in enough time to get a medal, but not first place or 10th place or anything like that. But she was pretty funny. Where it's just like, look, it's like if they want me to give my medal back, I'll give my medal back. Like I know I'm not a girl, but like I didn't. It's not like I beat everybody. Like I finished in a very I'm happy where I finished, but it was a very middling position. But if it's a big deal, I'll give this damn medal back. But let's calm down. But anyway, and of course it doesn't always turn out that way. But yeah, and he's got some other positions that are just kind of like he's opposed to the war in Ukraine, and he's very much against like corporatism. Like he's like old school in that like Democrats used to all be against war and against corporatism and a lot of this kind of stuff, and they just stopped because they smell that power. That power is just gotta drink it, just like the adrenochrome of small children. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. It's a long shot that he gets anywhere with it, and but Biden's never going to debate this guy, But if he can stay around 20%, or if he can stay around 20% or even pull stronger than that, that will be quite telling. Could be quite telling for the upcoming election because right now I think the Democrats are in a good position where I think they only have to get like one swing state basically to win, unless they shed some states like what happened during the first Trump election. But they going into it like their candidate sucks. They have an old man who's dying next to the Joker as the candidate. So the candidate sucks, but the map is pretty strong. But it would still be interesting. Like it'd be quite a repudiation, I guess, if the Democrats, a fifth or fourth of them or whatever, or it's just like, no, I'll go with the Kennedy guy that talks funny. I guess we'll wrap that up so we can join all the fun people in the old swimming pool over there. This has been Loaded Talk. LoadedTalk.com, of course, is the hub for everything, but follow us on the YouTubes and the Rumbles and the Spotifys and and the Apple iTunes and the follow us and the alerts and do all the things. You know you want to hear us. So I guess that'll be for this episode. What you got, Charlie?
We're gonna do a little fun fact of the day here.
Okay.
In 1993, the U.S. government spent $277,000 on pickle research.
I support it. I love pickles. The cucumber plant. Anyway, I won't get into the cucumber plant. It's a sore subject, but I support the pickle research. All right, that'll do us. Thanks.